For centuries, one name has echoed from the pages of the Bible as a liberator, a king chosen by God himself, Cyrus the Great. The scripture calls him the Lord's anointed, the man destined to free the Jewish people from their captivity in Babylon. But here's what most people don't realize. The real historical Cyrus, the man pieced together from clay tablets and ancient Greek accounts, might be even more impressive. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was a revolutionary who invented a completely new way to build and run an empire. Today, we're going beyond a single narrative to ask, who was the actual historical Cyrus the Great? By the end of this video, you'll understand his real achievements, how historians use archaeology and conflicting sources to build a reliable picture of the past, and why Cyrus's approach to leadership was so radically different from every empire that came before him. We aren't dismissing the biblical account, we're placing it alongside the evidence to see the complete man. Our story begins around the year 559 before Common Era, in a world dominated by powerful and often brutal empires. Cyrus inherited control over a small kingdom of Persian tribes on the Iranian plateau. The world at the time was ruled by fear. Empires like the Assyrians and the Babylonians kept control through terror, mass deportations, and the destruction of local cultures and religions. It was the only way anyone knew how to rule. Ancient Greek historians like Herodotus tell almost legendary stories about Cyrus's youth, filled with drama and prophecy. While fascinating, the historical reality was likely more grounded. Cyrus spent his first years doing the hard, unglamorous work of uniting the Persian tribes and consolidating his power base. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a politician, building loyalty through vision and administration long before he marched on the world stage. With his homeland secured, Cyrus turned his gaze west. Around 547 before Common Era, he marched against the incredibly wealthy kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Turkey, ruled by the legendary King Croesus. The Lydian capital, Sardis, fell. This victory was a massive turning point, giving Cyrus control over the Greek cities along the coast and access to the vast trade networks of the Aegean Sea. According to historical accounts, many of these cities submitted with little resistance. Cyrus's reputation was beginning to precede him. But his greatest prize lay to the south, Babylon, the glittering, impenetrable heart of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Babylon was the largest city in the world, a fortress of culture, wealth, and military might. A direct assault would have been catastrophic. But Cyrus was a strategist. He knew the Babylonian ruler, Nabonidus, was deeply unpopular with his own people, especially the powerful priests of Marduk, the city's chief god. So, in October of 539 before Common Era, Cyrus didn't just conquer Babylon, he was welcomed into it. His army marched into the city without a major battle. The people saw him not as a foreign invader, but as a liberator from a disliked king. And this incredible event isn't just a story. It's one of the most well-documented moments in ancient history. We have Babylonian cuneiform tablets, like the Nabonidus Chronicle, which describe the peaceful takeover. We have the accounts of Greek historians, and yes, we have the Hebrew Bible, which, in Isaiah chapter 45, had prophesied that a ruler named Cyrus would be the one to subdue nations. When three completely independent sources all describe the same core event, historians can be very confident it happened. This is where Cyrus changes from a great conqueror into a great innovator. He had to decide how to rule his new, multicultural empire. Was he going to follow the old playbook of terror and oppression? He chose a different path, a revolutionary path. Instead of burning temples, he restored them. Instead of banning local religions, He honored them. Instead of forcing everyone to become Persian, he allowed conquered peoples to maintain their own customs, laws, and leaders. This wasn't necessarily because he was a saint, it was because he was a genius. He understood that people who kept their cultural identity had far less reason to rebel. Diversity became a source of imperial strength, not a weakness. And we have proof. In 1879, archaeologists in the ruins of Babylon uncovered a small, barrel-shaped clay artifact covered in cuneiform script. It's known today as the Cyrus Cylinder. On it, Cyrus himself proclaims his policy. He declares that he has returned the statues of gods to their shrines and allowed deported peoples to return to their homes. The Cyrus Cylinder is one of the most important artifacts in history. Some have called it the first charter of human rights. It is physical, archaeological proof from his own time that Cyrus's policy of tolerance was real. This brings us to his most famous act, the liberation of the Jewish people. The Babylonians had sacked Jerusalem decades earlier and forcibly deported much of its population to Babylon. Following his established policy, Cyrus issued a decree allowing them to return to their homeland and critically to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. This is documented in the Bible, in the book of Ezra, and it perfectly aligns with the general policy of restoration described on the Cyrus Cylinder. From a purely historical perspective, Cyrus's action wasn't a special exception for one group. It was the consistent application of his grand, empire-wide strategy of rule through respect. To manage this vast territory, stretching from modern Turkey to Pakistan, he created a system of provinces called satrapies, each governed by a satrap or governor. These governors had significant local authority, but they were kept in check by a system of roads and royal inspectors, ensuring the empire ran smoothly. It was a model of decentralized governance that would be copied for centuries. So, how do we piece all of this together? We have three main streams of evidence. First, the Babylonian and Persian records, like the Cyrus Cylinder, which give us the official, contemporary view. Second, the Greek historians, like Herodotus and Xenophon, who wrote about him a century or so later, giving us an outside perspective, though sometimes mixed with legend. And third, the biblical texts, which record his impact on one specific group within his empire, the Jewish people. When all three of these different traditions line up on a key fact, like the conquest of Babylon or the policy of returning exiles, we can be very confident in the historical reality. Cyrus the Great likely died around 530 before Common Era, campaigning on his empire's eastern frontier. But his true legacy wasn't in the territory he conquered, but in the idea he created, that an empire could be built on a foundation of tolerance and mutual respect. This model was so successful that his Achaemenid Empire would last for over 200 years. His ideas were so powerful that they influenced Greek philosophers and even the founding fathers of the United States. Thomas Jefferson is known to have studied Cyrus as a model of an enlightened ruler. So, let's break it down. First, Cyrus was a brilliant military innovator, often winning through strategy and diplomacy rather than brute force. Second, he was a political genius who pioneered a model of imperial rule based on cultural and religious tolerance, a radical departure from the past. And third, we know this because the historical record is layered. Multiple independent sources from different cultures all corroborate the major events of his reign. The biblical portrayal of Cyrus as God's chosen instrument is a theological interpretation of a real historical event. History shows us what times he did. He implemented a policy of restoration. Theology explains why it was significant to a particular faith. The two can coexist without contradicting each other. If you want to go deeper, you can see the Cyrus Cylinder for yourself. The British Museum has digitized it, and you can explore it online. Reading even small passages from these ancient sources gives you a real feel for how history is constructed. We'll leave a link for you in the description below. The real Cyrus the Great was not a simple figure from a holy book. He was a complex human being, a warrior, an administrator, and a visionary who understood something profound, that lasting power comes not from the sword alone, but from the consent and respect of the people you lead. Over 2,500 years after his death, his model of leadership is still studied, still admired. The past isn't just a story, it's a puzzle we can piece together from the evidence left behind. It's real. What surprised you most about the historical Cyrus? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed digging into the real history behind legendary figures, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. Let's explore history together.